Good evening, one and all. It is December. We've made it to the end of the year. And welcome back to the last community watch party for the Pantheon developer stream of 2021. Thank you everybody for being here tonight. This is going to be a little bit different because the developer live stream happened yesterday. It is now Friday. The dev stream took place on Thursday, but I unfortunately was not able to make it for that. Normally we would watch it as it happens, but and I realized I was like, we don't have to watch it live necessarily. Because they put the VOD on YouTube like right away. And so today we're going to be watching the YouTube recording. I've already got it all queued up. And I'm just going to watch it. I have not seen any of it yet. I've successfully stayed completely spoiler free. Haven't seen anything. I know nothing other than the promo, the original promo that they put out, which is that this stream is going to be a follow-up on the world building progress in Wild's End, the conversion of the HDRP, the conversion of the art assets into HDRP, and also looking at a new dungeon, which I am assuming is the Gate, which is a dungeon that is accessible via Wild's End. So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. If you already caught this yesterday, that's great. Maybe you will notice something this time around that you didn't notice yesterday. Or if you just want to come hang out and chat about it with me, that's cool too. I'm super glad that all of you have taken the time to go on this journey with me today as I get caught up on the Pantheon news. Normally I would do like a whole pre-show and stuff and kill some time while we wait for the stream to start, but because it's YouTube, we can just start right now. So I think without any further introduction, I just want to jump right into it and get started. And the other thing that I realized that's actually kind of nice about watching the recording of this on YouTube rather than live is that I can pause it. I can pause it whenever I want. I have complete control. This is my show now. If I have something to say, I'm going to pause it and then I'm going to say it and you're going to have to listen to me. All right. We're going to hit that button. And then we're going to get started. SleeperFrog78 says your intro was epic. Thank you. Thank you. My editor and I put in a lot of work on that, and I'm happy with how it came out.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the December 9th, 2021 Pantheon Rise of the Fallen developer stream. I am your host, David Roenick-Schlau. With me, as always, is our creative director, Chris Joppa-Perkins.
Hey, everybody. Excited?
I know I say this every stream, but literally, this is an action-packed one. We have a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of cool things to show. Just to give you a general kind of overview of what we're talking about today, we're going to be discussing our HDRP conversion. We're going to be showing some assets, some things before what they look like and what they look like now. We're going to be showing a bunch of new, well, I guess we'll just call them assets, and we'll see how that goes as the stream develops. We're going to be talking about our continued work on the terrain, and we're going to show some progress in Wild's End. And then we're going to also talk about dungeons in general in Pantheon, and we're going to show off a new dungeon there. And then we'll end things off with some thoughts about heading into what we did in 2021 and what's coming up in 2022. So, Chris, long list of things to go over. You want to take it away?
I do. Yeah, let's dive right into it because there's a lot to cover. So let's start by, I just want to clarify, what do we mean by HDRP conversion? With Unity's new improved way of rendering things that we call Unity HD or the HDRP. We have had to convert all of the props that we were using in the older version of Unity to be compatible with the new shader.
How's the volume for you guys, by the way? Is the volume okay? Does it need to be turned up a little bit? Because this is normally, again, the audio on Twitch is a little bit different than YouTube. So I might not have made the proper adjustments that we normally would. I'm also drinking eggnog, by the way. What are you guys sipping on tonight? It's December. It's time for eggnog. It's a little low. All right. I will bump it up a couple decibels.
And the new rendering technology in Unity HD. This includes our environment props. So everything from rocks, trees, to castles, barrels, boxes, all those things. Our character, our NPC models, our item models, things like armor, weapons, etc. Even our special visual effects, things like combat ability spells, etc. They need to be converted so that they can make use of these new shaders and this new rendering tech. We're close to the finish line in that conversion process, and we wanted tonight to share a small example of that process with you by looking at some before and after comparisons, like David was saying. Taking a look at a few of our character models to start with. We're super excited about this. So let's go ahead and put the first image up there, starting with the halfling.
You said excited. Get ready. Oh, hello.
So with these images, you're seeing, again, a before and after comparison. The image on your left is what our player characters looked like in the old Unity project using the standard rendering pipeline. The image on your right is what our player character models look like now in Unity HD. And the difference is striking in terms of the quality of the skin.
I would say
and the clarity of the facial features and just the way the lighting interplays with all the different aspects of the model. Let's go ahead and pull up the halfling female. Now, we've talked before about the benefits of transitioning to Unity's high definition rendering pipeline. Essentially the justification for the work we've done converting all of these assets. And one of the things we've mentioned is how much of the performance gain there is with Unity HD's way of rendering and how it handles, the visual aspects of things. But also the visual benefits are huge, and sometimes it's just worth seeing to really kind of get a sense of how significant it is. Let's go ahead and pull up the elf male now. You're also seeing in these images the benefits of these upgrades to the armor as well, which we'll see throughout several things we look at tonight. This is a holistic worldwide improvement, and the benefits of HDRP touch every aspect of the game. One of the biggest visual gains we got moving to Unity HD was the quality of the lighting, and I want to emphasize that as striking as these before and after shots are, there were no alterations to the base mesh of these models. We didn't change the facial features. We didn't change the structure or any aspect of these models. This is all lighting and improvements of the rendering pipeline for things like skin and hair and all these various aspects. So it's just amazing to consider that.
Really? Because I love being able to pause this because I already have thoughts. Like my initial impression is that the HDRP unsurprisingly looks much better. What we're seeing on the left is essentially PlayStation 2 level lighting. That's pretty much the level of technology that they were using before for lighting, and lighting in any form of art. Lighting is pretty much everything when it comes to like how just good and beautiful and realistic it looks like. It's all about the lighting. And so I have been saying for a while that when they finally complete this transition to HDRP, it will basically be night and day. I think it will be it will be a pretty big turning point for Pantheon when they can really do a big stream to fully reveal it and put it all on display. I think that will be a significant turning point as far as the people who have rightfully criticized Pantheon's appearance up until now, and talking about how like, oh, this game looks so dated and stuff. Really what they mean, they might not be able to put their finger on it, but I think 95% of what they're saying is that the lighting is dated, and so this is a big step in the right direction to make it feel more modern. You can just see just on the left and on all of these models how I gotta remember where I am in the playback. But in all of these models, just look how plasticky it looks on the left. This looks like a doll. I mean, this looks like just with the you get the little reflections, super bright reflections under the eyes and under the nose and the chin. It looks like a Barbie basically, but on the right, I mean, that looks much more normal. I'm not going to say it's like photorealistic, but it's much more natural looking. Now when he says that the models haven't been tweaked at all, I actually find that hard to believe, because now maybe it's just an optical illusion or something, but in all of these models, tell me if you guys disagree, but it looks like in the after shots, it looks like all of the eyes have been brought closer together, which I think is interesting. And the proportions, the actual proportions just look much better. I'm trying to see which one. It's pretty noticeable in this one. Don't you think? Again, maybe it's just the shadows, the shadows around the eyes that are like playing tricks on me. But her eyes on the left side look pretty far apart, actually, almost disturbingly so. She's got these like big old bug eyes, and then they look much more natural there. Same here. Those eyes are creepy, to be honest. So that's interesting. About 2 or 3 more steps towards lifelike. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. If you zoom in and you think it's the shadows, you're probably right. It probably is the shadowing, like right on the inside of the eye up against the nose. Maybe it is just an optical illusion. Yeah, you're right. The zoom in, the degree of zoom, how zoomed in they are, could make a difference as well. Okay, well, let's keep this is gonna take a while if I keep stopping every 5 minutes. So let's keep going.
And improvements of the rendering pipeline for things like skin and hair and all these various aspects. So it's just amazing to consider that, as striking as these changes are, what it really comes down to. Let's pull up the Ogre Mail.
Whoa.
The only caveat to that statement is the change to the eye texture that we made with the Ogre here. The gains are incredible, and
that looks good.
Be happier with the effect that we're getting, the payoff that we're getting on our character models. And let's go ahead and bring up the Orc Mail to finish off here. And we wanted to include this one specifically because these updates, again, they're not just for our player character models. They're not just to certain specific things. They're game wide, including our NPCs as well. So you can see, just the huge improvement to the look and the rendering quality of our NPCs as well.
That looks great. Also helps that he has a more natural pose.
What's really cool is this is just flat lighting for the most part. There's not too much dramatic stuff. So
yep.
This you can see the difference to before and after now. wait till we get to the lighting stage of things and things really start to take shape.
Exactly.
Cool. So now we're going to move ahead and we're going to see a little bit more some weapons and how the HRP conversion process is working with that. And then also we have some new stuff to show, right?
Yep, we do. Actually, so we just took a look at the player and NPC model conversions. We want to take a look as well. We're not just converting things right now. We're also, there's new asset production happening daily. And it's also a good opportunity to mention that we've recently brought on a new character artist, Philip Kedge, and he's been hard at work creating weapons and armor and a lot of these character related assets that we're excited to get into the game.
That's big.
So what we've done is we've prepared a series of videos highlighting some of that weaponry. And this is going to show off several groups of weapon types that we've developed. We're going to be able to show it from concept to in-game. Let's go ahead and pull up the first concept piece here. And we're going to start off looking at a selection of our hammers, more hammers and combat hammers. And we're going to see it from concept to in-game. We're also going to be able to see a sample of the material progression as well. In this case, we're looking at rusted versions all the way up to polished steel versions. This, of course, is not the full spectrum of material variations or the full spectrum of weaponry that you'll actually see in game, but it gives a sense, especially with the materials, it gives a sense of the kind of visual distinction that we're aiming for with those variations. So let's go ahead and pull up the footage now.
Oh, hey.
So this is a character in game. This is actually in Thrown Fast. This is in the HDRP.
I was going to say that this looks great.
You can tell we've, a lot of the visual improvements we were able to show off, and just those before and after images with the characters. Now we're in an entire environment here where the terrain is in place, no longer gray boxed. We have a lot of new assets in. We also have the converted, some of the rocks and the trees. You can see Thrown Fast City in the background. The armor on the character as well, converted over to HDRP. And this video is actually just cycling through the different hammers that we just saw in concept. These are actual, in-game assets of those hammers with their full material progression. So you're seeing with each one, it going from the rusted version all the way to the polished steel. All right, let's go ahead and move to our
That's pretty
maces.
cool.
We got the
our two-handed hammers. Yeah, we missed those. Yeah,
two-handed hammers coming.
Cool.
I love, especially like the green on the the bronze, the kind of weathered material. You can I think the HRP really shows that off so well, and they look amazing.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, just because I know there's going to be some viewers who are going to pick up on some of the little granular details. All of this weaponry is for visual testing. You'll notice on the tooltips, like they all kind of have a standardized damage, a standardized delay, and the fact that, even though shaman are capable of using, crushing and heavy crushing weapons, shaman can't wear plate mail, and I obviously am. So don't read too much into, the plate mail that I'm wearing. And when we get into some of the weaponry that shaman cannot use, this is just look deving, and bear that in mind as we move along. Okay, now we can jump over to our maces. So again, we'll start with the concept art. And
I love a good mace.
These sketches.
I think it's important to talk about how quickly this process is going now. Where we're going from these concept sketches that we're seeing, and then how quickly the models are actually being created.
Yeah, it's very fast. I mean, I just got another delivery from Philip today on a selection of wooden clubs, and he's just tearing through these things. So it's really exciting. And obviously, with MMOs, you need a lot of weapons, you need a lot of armor. So the fact that we're able to push through these very quickly is really exciting. All right, let's go ahead and move to the footage.
Having an extra artist just
same thing.
makes such a big difference.
The selection of maces cycled through, the same material variations.
But it looks like the Statue of Liberty.
And I think just, visually
aged
seeing
bronze.
the difference, even from the hammers to the maces, and we're going to look at, some daggers and some other things coming up. You can see where, even though we're using the same material, when it's applied to each weapon, it gives it its own sort of distinct feel and look. And I think, the way that things are happening so quickly and the way we're able to kind of, like I said, go from the concept art to the weapons just really allows us to have this, it seems like a massive array of weapons now that we didn't have before.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. And the key to here too is that this is not just visual distinction. Now we got into we're going through the two-handed maces now. This is not just visual distinction either. I mean, as you'd probably come to expect, just about everything we do, there's layers of meaning. And the differences in the materials, again, it's not reflected right now in the tooltips. These aren't actual, in-game items. These are test items. But the point being that a polished steel mace is going to be very different in performance than a rusted mace or a bronze mace, so on and so forth. And just to reiterate, this is a very small sample of the material variation that you'll see in the game. We have quite a wide variety of materials that you'll find, and you're going to be seeing a lot of things that aren't just affecting damage and delay, but have other intrinsic properties as well. There's going to be a lot of depth to the material system that makes up the different armors and weapons that we have.
You want to go to the daggers?
Yep. Let's take a look at the daggers. We're showing, just for thoroughness sake, we're showing the concept art at the beginning just to kind of solidify the fact that there is a place where these designs are coming from. This is almost all of these concept pieces are the works of Jared Pullen, our lead concept artist. We also had Rod Wong as a concept artist working with us for a while. That is absolutely phenomenal, and he did some of these as well. But these are all, Pantheon items. All right, let's head to that footage. Take a look at these daggers.
I want to see that shield. That shield looks cool. Rotate that puppy around a little bit.
I really love the way these daggers came out. I think they were captured very, very well.
Yeah, and I think again, going back to like the textures and everything, that we're using on the weapons. I mean, this is stuff that we can apply not only to, obviously to weapons and armor, but world objects as well, right? I mean, this is when you create a library, so to speak, it just really allows you to explore and have fun. And this is, like you said, this is all Pantheon created assets here, and it's very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Spears.
I love this chunky dagger.
Now we're in the spears here.
Yeah. Now we're getting to one of my favorite weapon types. We're only going to be showing off one of these tonight because we just haven't shown very many spears, and I really want to show spears off more fully when we can show it in action and gameplay as well.
That's
but spears
intriguing.
Absolutely one of my favorite weapon types. The
Spears
cool thing about
cool.
our spears is that we actually have two types of spears: short spears and long spears. Short spears are designed to be lighter and faster than their long spear counterparts, so a short spear can be wielded with a shield as well. Whereas long spears are wielded with both hands. So let's go ahead into the footage. We're going to start with our short spears.
There is something about a spear and a shield at the same time.
And
Whoa.
long spears.
Jeez, he wasn't
Those are
kidding.
cool.
Yeah.
That's like the shaman in you, really. I think loves the right shaman spear. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I also love. I mean, a spear and a shield is one of my favorite, combat weapon combinations just of all time. And I'm excited that we're going to be able to really do that justice. Yeah, I'll wait to kind of go.
I hope you can throw.
Just a second once we get to the next weapon type.
I hope you can
and
throw
let's
it.
go and do that now. This next weapon type is one we haven't shown before either, and these are our halberds or our pole arms.
Halberds?
And
Halberds?
you'll see here there's quite a a variation of pole arms, pole axes as well, and those will be have different attack types based on their halberds. Yeah, that's
I was gonna say.
I just noticed that. Yeah, we'll show off.
That's the Australian way to say it.
Is it really?
No, I'm joking.
That's that's kind of a cool name though. I kind of like that.
Halberd.
All right, let's go ahead and show off the footage.
I love this.
Our first ever pole axe that we've had in game. I'm really, really, really excited to see these come in. I'm a sucker for really heavy weaponry. I just love. I'm a cleric at heart. I'm a healer by trade, but when I do like melee classes or play, more martial oriented classes, love big, slow weaponry that just hits really, really hard. So I'm really excited to see these in.
I think it's also, a more unique type weapon than you're used to seeing in an MMO too. There's not many that come to mind when, so I think it's...
That's what I was going to say. I'm trying to think of an MMO that I've played where you can use like an actual halberd. And even if you could, it's like, I don't remember them being very prominent. Like, is that just me? Because it seems like that is a pretty like underutilized weapon type in MMOs. Where like even if you do have them, like they're usually not very good. It's a cool concept. Like being able to attack like at such range. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of like big weapons that attack slowly, like two-handed swords or two-handed axes or something being the most common examples. I prefer to be a little more fast and agile because I think the downtime in between, like if you're swinging slower, which you normally would be with two-handed weapon, I think that downtime in between swings is a little dangerous. I think it's better to be doing more consistent damage, even if it's lower per hit. But with the halberd, maybe this is why like MMOs usually don't take advantage of like being able to like keep an opponent at range. Like if you can keep it far enough away from you to the point where like you can hit it but it can't hit you. I guess normally there's not that much sensitivity or realism to how combat is in MMOs, because there's just not really that much collision. Where normal stuff is like you're face to face with it, and they just throw realism out the window, and you could be swinging your weapon through an NPC, and it's all the same. But there's definitely some interesting concepts to be explored there. Anyway, just random thoughts. Carry on.
It's very cool to see, and I'm looking forward to playing with one myself.
Well, and I just want to say, while we're looking at all these weapons, it's probably a good time to double down on the fact that what you're seeing here, I think for most of us, we're used to seeing weapons and weapon variety. It affects animations, and we're kind of familiar with, certain classes can use certain weapons, that kind of thing. Better weapons do more damage, or, swing faster or whatever. In Pantheon, I want to double down on the fact that we want weapons and weapon types to play a significant role in combat and the experience of playing your character. And so we plan to go much, much more in depth. And we're going to do this in the new year when we're able to break down more of the details with our combat system improvements that we've talked about. But I want to leave you with 2 teasers to chew on leading up to that. So chew on this and be excited, for us to unpack this here in the near future. Number one, our goal is to make weapon choice and skill a meaningful decision for all classes at all levels. I'll say that again. Our goal is to make weapon choice and weapon skill a meaningful decision for all classes at all levels. That does not mean that every class can use every weapon. But what it does mean is what weapons you have available to you, your choice of what weapon to use, and the skill that you've developed in that weapon, we want that to be meaningful. And number two, weapon types and weapon skills are going to go much deeper in Pantheon than simply improving your chance to hit a target. Weapon types and weapon skills are going to go much deeper in Pantheon than simply improving your chance to hit a target. So I'm going to leave it at that. Plenty to chew on there.
So what I'm gathering is that even an enchanter at level 50 will still, his skill in like two-handed blunt staff is going to be meaningful, or even weapon choice meaningful, meaning you might not always want to use like a staff as a caster. Trying to think of what that means. What do you guys think that means? I don't think that necessarily means that all classes are going to be like auto attacking. Weapon specialization. Yeah, it could be. And you know, with melee, okay, with melee classes, it makes perfect sense. Like that's nothing out of the ordinary. You know, weapon type, you know, we've talked about in the past about like NPC body types, and you know, I think we're all pretty used to that in MMOs. You know, if you're a melee, you might want to carry a few different weapon types and have, you know, good skill in all of those in those weapon types, because maybe blunt weapons do more damage against undead, and you know, if you're going up against something like a reptile, like a snake, or maybe a dragon or something, anything that has scales, you might want something that's more piercing, right? That's all, you know, because it maybe has the body NPC body type might have some sort of damage reduction aspect to it, depending on the type of weapon that you're using. So that makes sense to me. That's not as intriguing as why would you suggest that even casters at all levels, like their weapon type matters. I don't think I would be surprised if it's like the type of, if it's that like the element of action combat where like even casters have like a ranged auto attack where you might have some magic missile or something that you can use indefinitely for free, and that is your auto attack that you can cast like at range, and that auto attack is based on the weapon type that you're using as a caster. I suppose that's possible, because that actually, if memory serves, that actually was once upon a time a planned part of Pantheon's combat system, but that was a long time ago, and I would be surprised if that was the route they were going with. XSplit says it would be cool if two-handed weapons gave unique abilities. Two-handed blunt could knock down enemies when they are placed in an uneasy state, something like that. That's cool. Now that I like that line of thinking, because that's tying it in with other systems that we know already exist in Pantheon, like state manipulation. You might have, like, somebody in your group might have an ability, even a spell or something, that puts a target in an off-balance state, and then you have a weapon-based ability that's only available to you when you have that certain weapon type equipped that allows you to take advantage of that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool if weapon types grant you abilities. Or maybe you just have abilities that maybe you already have abilities available to you that require a certain weapon type to be equipped. I guess that's possible. That could be kind of clunky in some ways, but I suppose something like that's possible. Reasonable person says could be you need a certain proficiency in order to use a weapon to its fullest, like a proc or scaling weapon. Okay, yeah, that's true. So weapons, have stats that you need to skill up to take advantage of everything. That could be, but again, it's like, are you really, does that mean like even higher level casters are going to be getting in there smacking things with their stick to level up their two-handed blunt skill so that they can get more stats out of it or something? Because that's what would happen if that were the case. I don't know. It could be, though. It could be something like that, where even like the weapon type, maybe there are certain stats or properties that only ever appear on certain weapon types. So, like casters, like they have two-handed staffs. Maybe they have like one-handed scepters. And maybe they have like an orb that I've seen in some games. You have like an orb that you can equip in your primary, secondary, and maybe there are certain stats. I'm just making stuff up at this point, but maybe there are certain stats that are only attached to certain weapon types. So maybe like wisdom only appears on scepters and intelligence only appears on orbs or something like that. That again, that I'm just making stuff off the top of my head, but even that, would you really, if he says that like weapon choice matters at all levels for all classes, like if it's something as simple as stats, you're probably not going to be wanting to switch between them that frequently. Now, even though as I discussed in my last YouTube video, by the way, youtube.com/BazgrimTV, in the combat overhaul video, stats in Pantheon, classes aren't just going to have like 2 or 3 stats that matter to them, and you're just going to want to like lean into those stats, and the rest of them you can pretty much ignore. We know that in Pantheon the goal is to make pretty much every stat matter in some way for every class. But are you really, I don't know, like is I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't know. I think we've postulated about it enough. That is quite the teaser, though. I'll have to think about that more. Pojalandme777 says, "Yo, dude, I watch a lot of your vids first time in chat. I'm so glad you made it. Thank you for being here. Glad you caught it on the first ever Friday stream."
And we'll unpack more of that when we come to our combat system improvements. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to show a last image here of some of the shields.
Now I was not expecting those beans to be dropped.
And now we get to the.
I dropped them.
Now we get to the shields.
Yeah, these shields are cool. I love.
There we go. I do love
fast one.
Love a shield.
Yeah, we chose specifically the Thrown Fast shields. You can tell, it's got the lion of Thrown Fast emblazoned in there, and it's cool to see the character like this because you've got a character wearing Thrown Fast armor, and then actually being able to equip the Thrown Fast shield. I know for like players who are big in role playing, was talking about with Adam about this the other day, how the ability to if you're really into the lore of the humans and the Thrown Fast lore in the city and whatnot, being able to by different means acquire armor like this and a shield like this and be able to wear the Thrown Fast regular outfit because you've gained it, you've earned it, you've done what you need to do to get it is really cool. But then also being able to loot a rusty Thrown Fast shield or find something like that. It's really cool to see that in and have some of that lore emblazoned into the look. Very cool.
Yeah, and again, this is just a little taste. We're obviously going to have a bunch more stuff in the future, and it's coming out fast and furious. Just want to remind everybody, like, all of this is made possible by your pledges. If you please keep the dream alive by pledging at PantheonMMO.com. We have different pledges for any budget, different tiers, so check us out. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to talking about our continued work on the terrain and how the HDRP conversion is going there and all the new stuff we got going on in Wild's End, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, just making fantastic progress on the world building front overall. Tonight, we've decided to showcase more of our progress on Wild's End. We can go ahead and put that footage up and let that roll. Not too long ago, we showed the start of Wild's End in a gray box state. You may remember that stream from a few months ago.
That's not gray
box.
Since
then, we've made a lot of progress on this zone, not only in the area of the terrain, but also in the huge amount of prompts that we've developed for this zone since then. And in all the prompt development that we do, we have a really keen eye on the reusability of it. If everything we made was specifically and only usable in a certain zone, then it limits the amount of use it can get elsewhere. And when you can retexture something and change its color, chase some details on it,
I love that shot. That looks great.
You can take like a rock kit like we've developed for Wild's End and use it in many, many different places. So it's really good for our kind of our overall speed and process. But with Wild's End specifically, it's just been fantastic to see the zone come to life and a lot of the nooks and crannies and just the different POIs areas and whatnot come into shape is really, really, really good. The next steps obviously here are the bringing our flora, our foliage online. So getting grass, the grass system in place, the ground cover. So, low.
That makes such a big difference.
Things like shrubs, bushes, things like that. And then obviously, trees, getting more canopies in place. That's, we're super close to that milestone. We're super, super close to getting those systems in and being able to kind of flip that on for our different zones. And when we talk about the HDRP 2.0 stream that we want to do, that's really kind of the criteria we're looking to complete. And once we have our foliage, our ground cover dialed in, we'll be ready to do that stream and show off the full array. So can't wait for that.
And again, I can't reiterate the speed now in which things are kind of getting done. How quickly it just sort of goes. You obviously see from the gray box stream we had a couple months ago to now. But even from week to week, day to day, I'm seeing huge progress. Like this stuff that we're showing off is now probably a couple of weeks old now. It's like there's already been so much progress even in 2 weeks since we captured this footage. So that's exciting. And I think, like you said, I think the packets and all the stuff that the artists are creating just sort of, help that and quicker. Sweet.
So Reasonable Person says, got here a little late if you said at the beginning, but is this a one-off for reviewing the stream or is this a thought to do the next day going forward to do a breakdown while being able to pause and ponder? That's an interesting question. Because this happened kind of accidentally. Because so yesterday I was just not available at the time that they were doing the live stream. And so I just kind of made a last minute decision with like, hey, I can just watch it. I can just watch the VOD for the first time tomorrow, which is today. And so, this is the first time that I've done this, and I wasn't necessarily planning on doing it consistently going forward. It was just kind of like for this occasion, but I don't know. I kind of like it. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like being able to pause and just kind of give my thoughts as we go. You guys let me know. Let me know if you think that this is something, if you prefer it like this, because normally I would, like, during the stream, I like have like a notepad or something next to me, and I'm like taking down notes of things that I kind of want to like revisit at the end. So normally I'd have like the pre-show, which is us just like hanging out, just chatting about whatever may be going on, and then pretty much watch the stream. And I normally try to shut up as much as I can during the stream so that I'm not talking over them. And then at the end, have maybe like half an hour or something where I kind of like then go back to my notes and kind of revisit, kind of give my thoughts on things that came up during the stream. This is a little bit different where we can kind of pause, like, if they say something, pause, that I can kind of react to it more immediately. I'm personally having fun with it, being able to do it this way. I think it's probably less confusing than like waiting till the end and be like, remember that thing that they said like 35 minutes ago? Yeah, I have some thoughts about that, but you tell me what flow you prefer, even if you're watching this on YouTube, because I will put the recording of my reaction on YouTube. Even if you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments what you guys want me to do moving forward, because it wouldn't be unreasonable for me to just always skip the live showing, and that way you guys, if you want to tune into the live showing, you can, and you want to catch my reaction to it the next day, then you kind of get both. I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm excited for HDRP too. I can't wait for that. It's gonna be a good one. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about dungeons in Pantheon, and we'll take a little time machine back to where we were and sort of where we've been going, and then I think we have something cool to show toward the end there.
We might indeed. Yeah,
Amber
so
Fate.
Most of you know by now we hinted at a dungeon reveal tonight, a bit of a teaser to this new dungeon. We're very excited to talk about, very excited to show off. And we thought it'd be cool to, before we dive into that, just to take a quick look at some of the other dungeons you'll find in Terminus, just a quick little stroll. There's some of the places we've seen before. And just as a reminder of the kind of variety that you can expect. So obviously we're looking here at Amber Fate. This is one of my favorite zones, one of my favorite dungeons, just because of its frozen cavern aesthetic. This is, a very high tier frigid climate. There's treacherous climbing. It's designed to be very, high on verticality. It's very closely connected to Dwarven lore, which is going to be just a joy for players to unpack and unravel. And it's connected to one of the deepest, darkest entities that you will find on the face of Terminus. I'll leave it to that. But this is a very treacherous, very mysterious, very beautiful in places dungeon that shows off and flexes a lot of that climate and just that atmospheric diversity that is, again, it's not aesthetic only. There's a lot of depth packed into what we mean when we say a frigid climate, and what that brings with the experience of an area like this. From here, we'll look at Black Rose Keep. Another dungeon, most of you probably have seen quite a bit. We want to highlight with this dungeon, our goal is to highlight a sense of height, that feeling of being precariously perched that you get when you travel to and travel within this keep. If you have not, I would encourage you to go and look, at some of the older videos that we've done of Black Rose Keep, especially the most recent ones we've done, to see that it's placed very, very high up on a kind of a little outcropping that sits above this maze-like system of valleys and ravines way, way, way down below. And so our thinking with this dungeon is to play with lots of creative NPC dispositions and NPC's abilities, especially ones that knock players around, especially NPC abilities that threaten to knock players off into the depths below. So we're very excited about this dungeon. It's very closely connected to the human lore. We have several really cool cyclical events planned for this zone, including an intermittent world boss, and just very, very excited for. I mean, it's very densely packed too, as far as lore and the perception system. There's so much to discover and find in Black Rose Keep. I can't wait, for players to experience it on that level as well. Probably our most well-known and most seen dungeon would be Halnir Cave.
Look how colorful that is.
Multiple times from various perspectives, angles. It's been developed more and more over time because it's actually a pretty important dungeon as a kind of a lore highway where it connects to lots of different movers and shakers in the world. Very closely tied to Thronefast. I would love to go into any number of things that I could, but it's amazing how much is densely packed lore-wise into this one dungeon. We consider it one of our starter dungeons, even though there's quite a bit of level range as you go deeper into it. It's one of the first dungeons players on King's Reach will be able to potentially experience if they choose to explore there. It's very tight, very corridor driven, lots of low light, filled with toxic climate, and again, just a real wealth of lore to uncover there. We've got Hangor, which is an example of one of our outdoor dungeons. So we do plan to have these large, sprawling, dedicated, subworld dungeons that you zone into, and they kind of, exist in their own space like that. But then Hangor is a great example of an overland dungeon where you don't have to zone into Hangor. It sits in Avendir's Pass, but it is built out and designed to be very much like a dungeon experience with the NPC density, the population type, the challenge, the risk, the reward. Halnir Cave is also in a milder, certainly, than Amber Fate, but also in a frigid climate, and will be one of the first experiences players on that side of King's Reach have with the climate system and needing to acclimate a bit to exist there comfortably. And lastly, we'll look at the Isle of Infinite Storm. So this is one of our raid zones. The zone is packed with game systems. It's dynamic weather, real point of contact lightning strikes, the wind shear climate, multiple fracture opportunities, fractures being the new name for our atmosphere system. So that kind of unnatural phenomenon that you might experience. There's climbing, there's pitfalls and traps, and obviously the boss, Sleepless himself. There's a lot packed in here, and very excited about this. And it's not even mentioning, some of the other dungeons that we, number one, haven't mentioned yet before at all, or places like Mangle Rock that I know we've mentioned very briefly. But there's a lot of variety in our dungeons, and we're excited to add to that roster the Gate and to talk about it a little more formally. So let's go ahead at this point. Let's roll the footage that we have of.
Hey, Minus, I am enjoying the stream so far. This has been great so far. And Reasonable Person says, makes for a better discussion, but I think you might not get the views you do from watching it live. Yeah, I noticed that, the crowd here tonight's a bit smaller than we normally would if I was watching on like a Thursday live with the stream, but that's okay. It doesn't, That doesn't make too much of a difference to me. I like this. Obviously, you guys have been very very interactive, which I think we've had a great discussion. I like the chill, kind of more intimate vibe. Just reacting to it together. I'm curious though, like, how many of you guys did watch the stream live yesterday and you're tuning in again? Because I know and I know I'm not the only one that didn't watch it live yesterday. People, have things going on. You can't always make it, especially with time zones. I know a lot. I know the typical 9 p.m. start time actually isn't that great for the people in the European time zone. I just kind of by default started my stream at 9 as well tonight, but maybe I don't know, maybe I would have to, if we're gonna watch VOD, I could consider maybe starting it earlier if we're gonna be watching it the next day or something. Yeah, I know you watched it live, Minus. Okay, that's cool. So you guys you haven't been spoiling it either, which is great. It seems like most of you guys have already watched it. That's good though. I definitely understand needing to watch it multiple times to get everything out of it. And we're about halfway through, so let's carry on.
Of the gate, just to kind of kick things off.
Wow, look at how high up that is.
So David, what do you remember about the gate? How would you describe the gate to somebody?
That's like it's like a temple.
This version or the gray box version?
This version.
Well, I remember it being very high up.
That's what I said.
With like lots of vantage points that you could see, the entirety of Wild's End for the most part, and wonder.
Okay, I had to look at it again because this bridge, I thought this bridge was much more of a drop off than it actually is. Although the perspective is deceiving, like, because we're still pretty zoomed out. The camera's pretty zoomed out from here. That a fall even this distance would most likely be fatal, I'm guessing. Then there's no guardrails. This is like full on Kelem mode. Like, can I zoom in?
The entire of Wild.
Yeah, that's pretty that's pretty narrow. It looks sweet though. It's almost kind of looks like a ziggurat kind of, with the stairs going up in all directions here. You'd run it real quick if you fell off there. Yeah, I bet. All right.
Wild's End for the most part, in one direction. I don't know how much I really want to give away. And other environments. I don't know what you call them. Other land masses in another direction. Mm-hmm. Is that sufficient? It was very cool.
There you go. Let me, before we kind of get deep into this, I want to read a little bit of what Jay and Gerhard, our lead writer, said.
Why is there a moat up there?
It's just kind of a little snippet. He says, the Wraiths are called the Withered by the Halflings. So remember, the gate here, sits in Wild's End. It is, in that sense, near to Sorhireth, where the Halflings live. The Wraiths are called the Withered by the Halflings, who are believed to know more of their twisted lineage than any other race, at least upon Kingsreach. While such may seem assumable, it's believed the Wraiths inhabit the very temple grounds that dominated their worship in their former life. The gate sits on the face of a cliff, and what follows is an account only partially understood, for the Withered language is ancient, fragmented, and glyphic. Much is reconstructed from legend, inference, and broken translations, yet it is a story largely untold. In a time ages before even the elves arrived, there was a resplendent cliffside known as the Gate. The origins of this name are not definitive, but it is what the Halflings call the place, though it is perhaps used more as a description of the temple's function rather than a proper name itself. The worshippers of this seemingly benign cult dwelt in relative seclusion for centuries.
I have a quick question for you, lore folk, or people, even just writers. This is always something that I've wondered. When in lore, whenever it comes up that, you know, the author says, you know, the origins of this name are unknown or whatever, and it's all being very like mysterious, like, oh, that's been lost to legend or whatever. Is that just like a fancy way of saying that the author just made it up and they don't care to come up with a backstory? Like, is that more or less what that means? Because that's how it sounds, which is totally understandable. I would totally do that if I was an author too. You know, you make it sound all mysterious when really it's like there never was any backstory. Like that's that's not a knock on JN. That's always just something I'm curious of, because maybe there is a backstory in it and you need to, who knows, maybe you could discover it if you dig deep enough. I don't know. Just random thought.
Until a peculiar trait was observed regarding their high priest. He never seemed to age. Generations of subalter priests would enter, rise, and die out, but this chief among them would not suffer the same mortal's fate. So that's just a quick little just dusting of some of the backstory, some of the lore that kind of encircles and enshrouds this place. Obviously, it's a very Wraith themed dungeon. So just like we saw, you know, a little bit of Wraith population in Halnir Cave, which again, going back to that, it being kind of this real crossroads of lore. The gate is where you're going to encounter much more of a dense kind of core encounter with Wraithdom and the Withered, as the halflings would call them.
So pretty much exactly what I said, right?
I mean, I probably didn't even need to read that or say anything. I said. You covered it so fully. Yeah.
You were just waiting for me to say it's a place really high that I could fall off and die. Like,
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's essentially what I just read, right? Like,
yeah. Well, you should show some of this concept art.
Yeah, let's get some of the concept art up there. So by now you're probably familiar with the red drawovers that we do. As we develop these areas, we will take pictures of them, and then Jared and the concept team will work in these drawovers to kind of inform the composition and, you know, how the decorations and the smaller details can be put in place. I just want to call attention though, like how high up this is. We have tried to carefully craft these shots, and even we've kind of removed some background elements and some things to really, as always with open development, it's important that we try to keep as much mystery and as much surprise as we can intact. But it's important to say that getting here will not be at all straightforward. One of the joys about Pantheon and the systems that we've developed, you know, for traversal, and
I mean, like I said, I swear I did not watch this yesterday, and the first thing that I said out of my mouth was, "Wow, look how high up that is." So I think mission accomplished on that. A couple things also that jump out to me about this. Also, I was like, why was there this moat? Why is this the random like strip of water around the stairs? And that's because it looks like it hasn't been added in yet. But it looks like the water actually comes out of the rocks here and then kind of trickles down into this moat and then drops off again off the edge of this wall, which would be a cool effect when that's done. It says tall twin waterfalls tumble down into eastern plains. Then there's like a lagoon beneath it. That's a really cool effect. What I'm wondering is, like, if you're like, so for actually this is weirder. This gets even weirder and weirder. So this bridge in the screenshot that we saw, it was intact, but is the intent for that bridge to be like crumbled? Because that does not look easily passable. There's like some vines going across, so it's like, how do you even get across there? And then even if you do, like, there's not another bridge to get across the water. I mean, I know it's not that much of a distance, but that's still weird. And then, like, my first thought when I see these drop-offs here, if there is, like, any sort of a current, which I could be wrong, but I seem to remember at some point saying that, Joppa saying that, like, water in Pantheon rivers will actually have, like, moving currents that push you along. So if this is flowing down this way, there's going to be a current pulling you toward this edge. So it's like, if you're in this water, if you're not careful, you could just get yeeted right off the edge. Right down that waterfall. Very intriguing. But yeah, how the heck, if this bridge, like, don't tell me you need to be, like, climbing these vines to get to the other side of the bridge. Anyway, maybe he'll talk about this. Let's keep going.
Kind of our approach to itemization and different abilities is we can just really have fun and be super creative with how we place certain things in the world and what, you know, players will need and be able to utilize to get there. And I want to just make, if we have any more concept art, let's go ahead and cycle through. Let's not go into any interiors, but yeah, we can cycle through any of the outer concept art we have. But you know, obviously climbing comes to mind when you talk about something that's high off the ground, and climbing would be, you know, obviously a way to potentially access this place with a high enough climbing skill and, you know, the right kind of equipment and whatnot.
Gentle lapping cascade.
But,
so it's gentle.
If I can just go off on a quick rant here for a second.
Swimmable.
One of the things that I'm most excited about with Pantheon is the kind of creative license and creative freedom that we're building in for players to choose how they want to try and tackle something. We will be successful, for example, if a player can come up to the gate from a distance and begin to kind of take in, how am I going to get there? And that could be climbing. That could be kind of strategic cooperation with a druid, for example, and the vine-woven bridge that they're able to form to cross certain gaps. That could be the warrior using the battering ram ability to break down loose or weak walls or parts of rocks to expose, you know, a new passageway. That could be an item that provides you the ability to glide for a very short duration, kind of like a slow fall type item where you can find a certain, you know, vantage point or precipice and, you know, glide over a gap or a crevice or another obstacle. I know that I reference single player games a lot as inspiration for these kinds of things, and they absolutely are, because they're so fun. But if that doesn't resonate as well with some, just think about the great D&D campaigns. Think about a great D&D campaign. It's the moments where we're able to ask questions like, can I jump across this gap? And if I do, will I be able to grab the other side? Can I slide down this and survive? Do we have any rope on us? Does anybody have any rope that they can try to let down and maybe climb up and drop down for the rest of us to climb? Do we have something we can use to grapple to the other side and swing across? And on and on and on. It's that freedom to ask and think that way when it comes to exploring and adventuring in that setting that makes it so fun. And so whereas other games may, you know, really push, you know, game modes, or we're going to have, you know, this kind of PvP feature. We're going to be very, you know, RVR based or siege based, or, you know, this is kind of a crafting survival type game. And you boil it down to, what are you doing as a player? What are you actually doing as a player? What, other than, you know, targeting something and attacking it, killing it, looting it, and moving on to the next thing? Yeah, it may be, you know, in a siege environment. Yeah, it may be in kind of a crafting survival environment. And there's nothing wrong with those games. But where we're really staking our claim is, how can we expand the adventurer's experience, the player's ability to creatively and with a sense of sovereignty look at the world and decide how they want to approach it, and leverage whatever means that they've acquired for themselves to see this world open up more and more to them. That is what Pantheon really, that's the heart of what Pantheon is all about, is creating that quintessential adventure experience and just evolving it to as many degrees as we possibly can. So I'm super excited about the gate in as much as it represents that in getting to it, not to mention the fact that once you get inside of it, how much more and how, that will stay present as well. So we're excited to show off a little bit actually of the internals of this zone as we brought it. Let's go ahead and start with the concept art of some of the internal areas. So here we have the ancient temple ruins, and this is a good example of what kind of some of the first early rooms that you would encounter inside the gate would be. Couple things you can notice right off the bat. This is going to be a very, temple and cavern kind of blended themed area. Lots of vines. And the main thing I want to draw attention to is the water. And
whoops. So I gotta pause. I gotta pause this. I'm sorry to interrupt because he's on a roll, but it's hard to stress how much I love the like vine covered temple aesthetic. And I wasn't considering playing a halfling, but if this is I guess this is a high level dungeon, right? So maybe and maybe maybe you don't necessarily have to be a halfling to experience this dungeon at level, but it's just funny to me because if you think Pantheon's development is taking a long time, I have been working on an adventure map in Minecraft creative mode for that has the same theme. Almost the exact same theme. With a vine covered temple with like caverns and stuff, exactly like what he's describing with these water channels. Looks very much like this, and I have been working on that on that map literally for like 6 years. Like I've been off way more than I could chew. It's like it's gonna be this awesome, like there's gonna be puzzles and it's just gonna be huge and like it's I was like really trying to like impress my friends and family, and it's still not done, and it may never get done. but I just need to mention that because this looks awesome.
Is going to play a very, very important role in this particular dungeon. Let's look at another shot.
And scale, that one thing that concept art showed really well was the figure, how small he was compared to how large that room is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Scale's big, and it's as you kind of learn more about the gate and kind of the history of this place, then I think that scale will become even more significant. What this image shows and the image after it, we can go ahead and move to the image after it and maybe kind of bounce back and forth between those two if we've got it. We may not have an image after it. Okay, there's another concept image that actually shows that channel there being filled with water, and then this one, the water is gone. And one of the when we talk about water playing a big role, this is one of the aspects of this dungeons is that there's going to be manipulation of the waterways to open up areas, close off areas, and essentially part of that discovery mechanism. So you can see here when this was fully submerged with water, you may not be able to swim down deep enough to get to those passageways, or you may not be able to hold your breath long enough to get wherever those passages lead. But if you figure out a way to manipulate the mechanisms that control the water flow in here, then you can actually open up some of those passageways and create new realms of exploration for you. So there's if I were going to name some inspirations here, certainly the Swamp Temple from A Link to the Past. Actually, Kale Drackle from EverQuest was a pretty big inspiration for this area as well, particularly in regards to the meandering kind of non-linear approach that we're taking. If you noticed, the gate itself was very, very high up, almost to the very top of that mountain. And so if you enter the gate from there, where else are you going but down? And so a lot of the gate is this kind of non-linear traversal through a very kind of sprawling internal cavern area that's filled with this, temple architecture. So lots of passageways, lots of hidden places. Just really excited. And to top it all off, we've prepared a few screenshots of the what this area looks like inside. So let's go ahead and show that off.
Whoa.
The mood and the feel, just from the screenshots alone, I think.
Dang, I love a good dungeon.
As an adventurer, you just it brings on that sense of that we're trying to get, the sense of wonder and exploration, and you just kind of want to see every nook and cranny of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, how great does it feel to go into a dungeon like this and not be in a linear instance where it's like, man, this looks really cool, but I know there's a path that I take. Like, I know there's a way through this. What if every one of those openings on the side was a path? And what if, where's the water coming from? Where's it going? What if I followed that? And that leads to a path or two that can slide out into a totally new area. I climb up, I find, a little part of the cavern that's fallen away, and there's a way to kind of squeeze through that, and then I have another path. And that's what I mean by that sprawling kind of non-linear experience. And it's not just the gate. I mean, that's a hallmark of all of our dungeon design, but it's something that we believe is going to be very refreshing for that experience. So can't wait to show even more, but just wanted to show off a little bit about how this is coming together. And if you go back and maybe rewatch this, you can look at some of those concept images and see that, we take our concept art very seriously, and does a lot to inform how we build these areas out.
Yeah, that looks great. And also, I'm like, my mind is kind of blown by the idea of players manipulating the water level in a zone, and that affecting, I mean, this is an open world game. This is non-instance. And so, I mean, if you're cutting off or opening up, travel lanes for everybody in that zone, like that's kind of bizarre. I know, like, a lot of people will rightfully have like the gut reaction to wonder, like, is there potential for griefing in that? Like, you're, drowning people potentially by raising, if you have control over the water level and that affects everybody else. Like, that's kind of, it's cool. That's bold. I wanted to respond to some things in chat. So Reasonable Person says, was that new artist ever announced publicly, or is it something that will be showcased in the newsletter? So the new character artist, that was just mentioned for the first time in this stream. That's pretty recent, I think, or at least recently announced. Maybe they'll go into a little bit more in the next newsletter. I'm not sure, but yeah, the character artist is new. Tim Schuler, who's the environment artist, who I assume has been working on this zone. He's been on the team for a few months at least. He was announced in a newsletter a little while back, but and then ZL says, do they have a release date yet? And Reasonable Person says the answer is when it's done. And that's pretty much true. So there's no release date. And then ZL says it was alpha in 2017 as far as I know. So a little bit about that. So first of all, it's so pre-alpha testing did start in 2017. Yes, that is true. And so the next stop is alpha. And the reason why there isn't a release date for launch or beta or even alpha at this point is because this is crowdfunded, like truly grassroots crowdfunded development, which differs greatly from traditional game development, where they're able to project dates much further into the future. But because Pantheon is crowdfunded and they receive funding at a pretty unpredictable rate, it makes it very difficult for them to know, exactly how long things are going to take very far into the future, because it really depends on the funding in between now and then. Like their progress is very closely correlated to the amount of funding that they receive. Because if they get additional funding, then they can hire contractors. It doesn't even necessarily mean hiring full-time developers. It can be contractors for like a short job, or they can maybe outsource some materials, like some art or whatever, which all of that affects the speed of development. And so it's just it's very difficult for them to announce dates with any sort of confidence. And in the past, they would put out these estimates of, we hope to reach certain milestone by, X time frame. But then again, because of how difficult it is to predict how this development is going to go, then if they missed those timeframes at all, it would just cause all sorts of disappointment and commotion. And so now they just kind of keep it to themselves. They claim to have their own internal kind of timelines, and like, okay, well, if we have this amount of funding, then we'll do this, and then if we get this funding, then we can take this track. But again, because they don't know which of those tracks they're going to take, they just can't be 100% sure. And so then that's why those dates aren't public. And then like Reasonable Person mentioned, then also there was the refactor that happened starting in like early 2020. So again, ZL, if you haven't been following the development for a while, you probably missed out on that, which is probably a good time for me to plug the Library of Pantheon, which I worked on. Go to libraryofpantheon.com. It has very detailed documentation of Pantheon's entire development history, all the gameplay streams, the newsletters, development streams, roundtables, everything. It's all up there. There is a alpha tracker on there as well, because the developers have been releasing a to-do list for alpha, even though they might not be able to confidently say exactly when alpha is going to start. They do know, this is the criteria that needs to be done in order for the game to be ready for alpha. So they know what needs to be done. They don't necessarily know how long it's going to take, but the alpha tracker there on the Library of Pantheon is following the progress on those to-do list items. So that's probably the best thing to keep an eye on now, to get an idea of roughly, how far they are from alpha. But there's also some information on there about the refactor. The October 2020 newsletter was kind of the breakthrough newsletter that kind of gives a good overview of the whole process, everything that happened before and during the refactor. So if you missed out on that, if you haven't been following Pantheon for a while, that would be a good place to start to kind of fill in those gaps.
I think what I love about Wild's End, the gate. I can't. When I say the gate is high up, I am not exaggerating. I can't remember. Like, honestly, I'm not even saying this. Like in an MMO, the last time I've been in an environment where it's that high, right? And then there's other parts of the zone where the well pond is like super, right? Like where you can go so low, and just that sort of vertical exploration this zone shows that off, but also it gives me such hope for what we're doing in the future and just the creative avenues that we're going to take. Speaking of which, do you want to talk a little bit about where we've been this year and sort of where we're going?
I mean, this year has been dense. I prepared for this even, but something about you asking it is like makes it land on me with fresh weight. I think obviously the transition to the HDRP, the Unity HD, and the work to kind of get everything, ingested into that to be to where we are now. I mean, that is absolutely the milestone. That is because it goes so deep towards positioning us to sprint forward towards the finish line, having these things in place. So, I mean, the banner I would put over 2021 absolutely is, weathering that storm of getting the project into this HDRP state and, getting everything ingested into that. What I'm excited about is 2022. And I mean, I am very excited about it. And the word that I would put on it, kind of the banner word I would put over 2022 as I thought about it, is imminence. We've been in development for a long time. So long, in fact, that the strides we're actually making right now are hard to really feel. It's hard to feel them, how significant they are, because we've been at this a long time. It is very clear if you're looking closely and you're looking deeply enough, it's clear to see, but I don't expect most people to do that. I mean, we all have lives that we're living. Life is hard, and we're not in this to like study the fine grain ins and outs of, the development cycle. We just want to know, like, is it happening? When's it happening?
Speak
What's
for yourself.
But the corners that we're about to turn, the jumps that we're about to make moving into 22, as we draw closer to alpha, as we burn through more and more of that checklist, and those things are demonstrable and able to be experienced by our testers, able to be showcased in our streams, I firmly believe that 2022 will be a year of Pantheon's ever-increasing eminence, that to solidify that this game's coming, and when it gets here, it's going to be an incredible experience. So that's what I'm anticipating. Obviously, I have alpha in mind when I say that, because that's really the next milestone of all milestones. That's what we're all looking for and waiting for and hoping for. And this year has been about getting us, fully positioned and oriented to sprint towards that goal. And our hope is that everything we show will be further proof and building confidence that we are absolutely heading in that direction. And I think it's just going to reach a tipping point soon where it's so much more clear that that's happening than not.
And when we're going to have the upcoming newsletter is going to go further into detail about, what we did in 2021, looking back and kind of heading, into 2022. I think we might have time for a couple questions as we head out. You down for that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm not going to name names. It just takes too long, but I'm just going to ask the questions. Will there be whips as weapons with realistic physics?
Whips, maybe. Realistic physics, no.
Okay. By the way, I just want to say that with Ben not being here on the stream, there were a significant amount of beans dropped. I don't know if that was coincidence or okay. Some of these questions are a little silly, but we'll ask them anyway. Not saying this one is. If this is the gate, where do you end up if you get through? Every door leads to somewhere. You want to talk about that at all?
Well, I'll say this. if you look at any of the content we put out where you can see Wild's End in more of its fullness, you'll see that it's surrounded by ocean. And the gate sits at the top of a large mountain in Wild's End, and we've talked about how the progression through the gate is downward. So if you're moving through a very water-themed dungeon and you're moving downward,
What?
and you're in a land that sits, completely surrounded by ocean, then you can maybe tell where you might end up. I'll leave it at that.
Very cool.
I'm glad. That almost gives me flashbacks of like Kedge Keep. Now he didn't mention that when he was talking about the inspirations for this zone, but that's a little crazy if it's really that high up in a mountain. I mean, so a reasonable person said, I want the gate to link to that deep pool of the wellspring. Yeah, it is the wellspring in Wild's End. But like, so they said that the verticality of Terminus is 3,000 meters up and 3,000 meters down. So that's a lot. I mean, and I'm not saying that the gate is 3,000 meters up in the air. I'm sure it's not. But like, if the gate looks like it's way, way, way up at the top of a mountain, and the wellspring is way, way, way down underground. Like we saw the scale, the concept art, and the scale. You see, the whole wellspring, and then like the person, like 6 foot, the 6 foot model is this like tiny dot at the top. That's in order for those two things to be linked. You'd have to go really far down, and the gate must be. So is that like the opposite of like the verticality of Amber Fate, basically? Or like in Amber Fate, you start at the bottom and you're constantly climbing up and up and up and up and up. But with the gate, you start at the top and you're going down, 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 down. Is that what's going on? And he's talking about water levels that are adjustable, so there's like, so that means that there's going to be tunnels that go straight up and down, and if there's no water in it, then you just fall down to your death, so you need to fill a tunnel with water so that you can swim down in it. Is that what we're talking about? Jesus. Okay.
This is an interesting question. I think I know the answer, but what's the most underrated thing shown here? Smallest presence, but biggest overall impact.
On this stream?
I believe so.
That's an interesting question. What's the most underrated thing shown?
Smallest presence, biggest overall impact. Would it maybe? I honestly think it's just showing off the HDRP in general.
Oh, you're right. The well pond. That sounds better. That sounds more accurate.
Talked about it at length, but I mean, honestly, the speed, of which things are being created these days and how quickly we're going to be able to progress moving forward from here on out is, I would say that would be my answer. But do you have it?
Yeah, I would say that too. And I think the weapon videos that we showed, not because of the weapons, but because of the holistic picture that was on display there. Because you've got, it's in the actual client. This isn't an engine. There's NPCs walking around. There's, up like real-time updating statistics on the character sheet. There's the abilities. There's, they're actually equipping these things. You're seeing the rocks, the trees thrown fast in the background. You're seeing the new terrain. You're seeing, new actual like prompts, like what my character was standing on. Those little bits of footage included like such a huge banquet of all of that progress. I would have to say that was probably that, but I mean, a close second would be the gate, because I'm so unbelievably excited about how that dungeon is coming together and just the visuals of what it looks like. I'm so happy with it.
It's really high up. Really, really high up.
You know what, Ronak? It's really high up. You're right. It is.
Okay, this is okay. Will items still have different aesthetic variations of the same basic item? Meaning, like, will a human bronze mace versus a dwarven bronze mace, for instance, or will they have the same look?
Yeah, we're not going with racial distinctives for that kind of stuff. We will have. I understand kind of the background of this, and where like that thought could come from. We're not going to have the same steel breastplate look one way on a human and look another way just because it's a dwarf on a dwarf. But what we do plan to have are those racially distinct pieces. So, like you saw with the Throne Fast shield, for example, and the Throne Fast armor, that's very emblematic of Throne Fast and the human race. And so you'll expect, to see lots of things like that do, very much bear the mark and the identity of the race that they are connected to.
Okay. Will caster weapons affect spells?
I'm going to defer that until our
That's what we
will go into that.
That's what we were on to earlier.
Okay. That beans will not happen tonight. What climate might we find in the gate?
Pressure.
I'm gonna ask the hard questions. You've dropped enough beans, but I'm gonna ask them anyway.
Well, anywhere there's water, you're going to naturally expect anaerobic and the pressure climate.
Mm-hmm.
Anaerobic at all times, but pressure if you get deep enough. Or if you're under like a raging waterfall or something like that, you would experience the pressure as well. As far as beyond that, that's a secret for the gate to tell, not me.
Are there various ways to train your weapon skills, or will it strictly be leveled through combat?
We are considering some additional ways to do so. I'll for sake of time, I'm not going to kind of go into the thought process, but it's even relatively recent discussions. We've gone pretty in depth on that specific thing, and some obviously through combat would be a definite and primary way to do it. Whether we incorporate the ability to interact with certain trainers that allow you to do that to some degree. Things like training dummies that you can find, whether it's in a city or in Black Rose Keep or something like that, up to a certain skill level, training partner NPCs that you can find, different. We're considering some different avenues, but more on that, I guess, when we get a few more definitive thoughts in mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a couple more here and then we'll end it. Do we have plans for different animations for all the different weapon types? Meaning, like, does a two-handed spear have a different animation versus the two-handed halberd or halberd, as we're now?
Yeah, I mean, some weapons will share animations. You might see, for example, the animations between a dagger and a short spear might be pretty similar. Where you'll see distinction even in those scenarios is when you're looking at certain special abilities. So, and again, I'm not going to go any further than that, but there will be some crossover. But if you're talking about totally different weapon types, for example, like if you have a polearm that functions as a two-handed piercer because it's built, essentially to be a two-handed piercer, then you can expect to see two-handed piercing animations, something like what you would have with your long spear. But if it's a poleaxe, then you're going to see, two-handed axe type animations. If it's a poleaxe, you're going to see something more akin to like a long-handled axe weapon that would be different from like your standard, just two-handed axe type animation. So there will be plenty of distinction to create appropriate variation between them. But then also, just to be resource-wise and conscious, we'll, kind of overlap animations where it makes sense and is appropriate.
Okay. Last question. Joppa is sporting a mohawk. Is that a bean for a character customization hairstyle? There was no way we were getting to this stream without talking about the mohawk. Just saying.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I cut my own hair, and sometimes I just decide to do something pretty crazy. So that's what I did, and I made it through the wife filter. As long as I can make it through that, then I feel like I can be seen in public.
It works.
Who knows? Who knows if I'll keep it or not? It is what it is right now.
I would totally do a mohawk for my character. Okay, as we wrap things up, just as a reminder, we have a pre-alpha session this Saturday from 10 a.m. to midnight Pacific time for VIP pledges. Again, if you like what you saw tonight or you like overall what we're doing, head on over to pantheonmmo.com. All this is made possible again by everybody and their pledges. And, we have lots of different pledges, lots of different tiers. So check it out. CP, you want any closing words on tonight?
It was a lot of fun. I'm excited. I'm really energized for where we're at and where we're going. So thanks all for the support and coming and hanging out, and onward and upward.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you next stream.
Well, there you have it. Minus says, I missed your reaction, Baz. What did you think of the rusted weapons and shields? I thought it looked great. I liked the variety in all the different the models. Like, there was lots of different models and good detail, good textures, and all of that's just now in game. Like, it makes it feel much more like a full-on MMO, that whole stream was that's one of the best streams I think that they've had in several months. There was a lot of good like footage, like actually seeing stuff in game, like the videos and the screenshots. Like, that dungeon looked really, really good. That was a great stream. I think that was a good way to kind of cap off the year. This will most likely be my last stream of 2021. Again, let me know if you liked this format of being able to kind of pause as we go and react to things along the way, as opposed to watching it live. We'll see how what we do picking it up next year, but this was a lot of fun. I did want to mention, so I'm currently working, I'm in like the late stages of writing a video for YouTube. I'll have the recording of this stream up on my YouTube probably tomorrow, and then hopefully next week sometime I will release a video that I've been working on, talking about Pantheon's vision, and kind of bouncing off of the last episode of Parting the Veil that VR put out, talking about the type of game that Pantheon is meant to be. And so I got that, and then what I'm even more excited about is talking about, we're at the end of the year. I think it's really good to have something really solid to kind of cap off the year. So I'm working on kind of a 2021 year in review video for Pantheon, kind of looking back at everything. I know they touched on it a little bit in this stream, but and probably will in the newsletter. But I want to kind of put that all together in video form and make it even more clear to see everything that has happened. Try to condense it down into, I don't know, maybe like 15-ish minutes or so, and to really put it all in one place so it's easy to see everything that happened, because it was quite a lot, and it's easy to forget the things that happen way back at the beginning of the year. So we can review and refresh our memory, and hopefully that sets us up for 2022. So we've got that to look forward to. Sancho says, greatly enjoyed this session. Reasonable Person says, I vote for this. Takes away the competition too with Pantheon's plus recap show. Just my opinion. That's true too. Yeah, I think it would be cool actually to have some more options just for people however they want to consume it. You can like watch the show live on the Visionary Realms channel, and then Pantheon Plus has their recap show right after that, I think. And then maybe I do a reaction to it earlier in the day. I could maybe do something like early afternoon. For people that prefer that time frame. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Regardless, though, whatever happens, I do appreciate every single one of you who tuned in here tonight. This was a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys around in the community. Join the BazgrimTV Discord channel if you haven't already. The link for that is below. We can continue the conversation there. Also, while you're at it, join the Library of Pantheon Discord, because we recently launched a Discord bot called the Librarian of Pantheon that we are currently testing. It's pretty new. It's going really well, though. This is a bot that is made to answer all of your questions about Pantheon, whatever it may be. It's powered by the Library of Pantheon itself. It can retrieve any content from the library at your command, and it has lots of other just valuable information. Hopefully you learned something new from that. So check that out. So I hope to see you guys around. Please have a great night. Stay safe. And we'll see you next time in 2022.